Hey guys, what's going on? Andrew coming at you, and in this video, we're talking about 5 things the US does better than Sweden. So if you can't handle a goofy American guy giving some criticisms about your country, trigger warning now, you might want to get out of the video. But with all that said, let's get into it. Number 1 has to be shipping. I've been here 7 years, and that whole entire time I have missed the American shipping system and service overall. Being here in Sweden, I've ordered 3 packages in the last month. 2 of the 3 packages were damaged, and they weren't even taped. Like that, whoever boxed it didn't even take the time to tape the package. I kind of feel like I have no problem for anyone that works for PostNord. I'm not trying to be bad there, but I think it needs to be a much better company. And it could be so much better. I kind of feel like they are a monopoly, and because there's no competition with them, there's a little bit of competition, but not much. I just think that they can continue to give awful service. And what stinks too is their whole campaign last year was just okay, we want to come and listen to you.
Företag som har varit starkt kritiserat senaste tiden. Jag är ute på en turné för att svara på folkets frågor och lyssna på kritik.
I think their campaign needs to be, they need to be better. A lot of Americans that live in Sweden don't like them due to the new tax they put on items. Like I got a pair of $50 headphones for my parents. They spent $30 to ship that to me, and then I got taxed another $30, and it was on my birthday. I had then got one of those ransom notes, I like to call it, PostNord gives you, where they're like, we have your package, we'll give it to you, but we have some demands first. I understand that a law changed, and that's the reason why, but I think there's a better way to go about it. Let me pay online beforehand so I can get the package. I think anytime your system is, we're gonna delay the item that you ordered online until you pay a tax, I think that is kind of going a couple steps back, because the whole idea of shipping is getting things to you as soon as possible. As far as shipping within the country, buying things, it's quick, and that part I will say is okay, but I'm not a big fan of their customer service, and I just feel like Sweden kind of deserves better. I think the whole shipping service deserves better. In the United States, we have the 3 big ones that do shipping, and when I was a kid, you only got mail 5 days a week, and then we had UPS and then FedEx, and they started to compete with the United States Postal Service, so now shipping is almost 7 days a week. You're getting deliveries constantly and all the time, but because in the United States, online shopping has really taken over, I've gotten letters here that said, hey, your package comes, but you have to go all the way to our facility to pick it up because we don't have room at the grocery store. It takes me 20 extra minutes to go to this place. It's out of the way, and I feel like you're totally going backwards, because the whole point of online shopping is for it to be convenient. So I think that PostNord also needs to evolve a little bit, and we have to change the way shipping is working, because as more people are going to buy stuff online, we have to find a place and space to keep all that. You can't keep moving the packages out of there. So I am not the biggest fan of PostNord. I know I'm not alone in this one, and Sweden, I hope you get a better service soon. Number 2 has to be entertainment. Now, I like watching Swedish TV shows like So Mycket Bättre, Swedish Idol. Sometimes there's a lot of good documentaries, and I do like to watch SVTV is Report and follow the news, but you just can't argue with the fact that the United States has the best entertainment but just the best entertainment in the world. We have the best television shows you can imagine, and the best movies. It's just something that we do a really, really, really good job of. And we're now living in this golden age of television. And with that being said, if we're going to include entertainment, we have to talk about Netflix, we have to talk about HBO, and we have to talk about Amazon Prime. Now, it's a shame that Amazon Prime isn't really in Sweden yet, but they have a lot of great shows there. And just the whole idea that the Americans took over the idea of streaming online. I still remember this day being a kid, and most of the stuff you could stream on Netflix was really crappy or just not good movies. I remember watching it, and it was not good quality yet. It was streaming, and my mind was completely blown because I was doing it for my television, and I was like, this is going to be huge. So you cannot argue the fact that the United States really kicks butt when it comes to television. Number 3 has to be medical marijuana, and maybe just marijuana laws in general. I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but the United States has been changing its perspective on it a little bit more. My state, Pennsylvania, just legalized medical marijuana, and the typical medical marijuana patient that I met in the United States when I was there in Pennsylvania is someone over the age of 65, someone that has arthritis, usually elderly people that weren't using marijuana really when they were younger to help manage some of their pain. and maybe some people that have cancer and things like that, they have found medical value there. Now, Sweden pretty much believes that cannabis doesn't have medical value as far as like what I've seen on television, what people talk about.
Ingen har någonsin dött av cannabis. Det har använts som medicin i flera tusen år.
Fullständigt fel, det har det visst. Det har gifteffekter på hjärta, på lungor. Det där är en myt och det kan jag direkt gå emot. Det har visst dött tusentals, jag vet inte om mer vad det gäller överdoseringar av cannabis.
They just made CBD basically illegal, and that makes me a little bit sad because CBD is typically really good for brain health. It's really good for children that suffer from certain types of seizures, and they wanted to take it away so they could start regulating it, and I just feel bad because I feel like some people are going to needlessly suffer. If you have a loved one that has cancer, I think it would be nice if they had that as an option to use it. Marijuana in Sweden is considered to be just as dangerous as heroin in the drug laws, and what we've seen in the United States is that sometimes having really harsh drug laws tends to punish people that are like minorities and people that are in poverty more than it does people that are well off. We saw this in the US, and I'm not saying it's happening in Sweden, but I do think it's a possibility. I really like what my city did, Pittsburgh, where marijuana is not legal, but it's decriminalized. So if they catch you with it, they can either take it from you or they can just give you like a $50 ticket. I think maybe that's a better way to go about it. I do not say that I don't think anybody that's young should like use marijuana or alcohol really, because I think it's bad for your brain when it's developing. But if you look at countries like Denmark and Copenhagen, the world didn't end when they took that route. If you look at my country, the world hasn't ended. We've actually seen like alcohol use go down in a couple areas. So, it's not so much being pro this and saying that this is the way it needs to be, as much as I definitely think at the very least, Sweden should look at it as a medical option, because I do think there's enough evidence to say that it is. I don't know why Sweden has this kind of view, because it does feel like we're living in the 1930s. It does feel like a kind of uneducated view when you have people on television saying that tens of thousands of people have died because of it. I know I'm going to get criticism from it, and I'm probably going to get like demonetized, but I just think that that's kind of like irresponsible. And my fear is when people talk about how serious marijuana is in the same lines of like heroin and cocaine, my fear is that somebody young might try marijuana and then think it's not that big of a deal and then move to harsher drugs. As far as gateway drugs and studies go, there's very little evidence to suggest that marijuana actually is a gateway drug. What we do know is that people that use cocaine have typically tried marijuana, but most marijuana users actually don't move to stronger drugs. So this is my personal opinion. I mean, if only marijuana was gambling, then it would be everywhere in Sweden, but The next one I have to talk about in Sweden, and number 4, is going to be becoming wealthy. I just think it's a lot easier to become wealthy in the United States than it does in Sweden. As you start to make more money in Sweden, you have to start paying more and more tax money, and to a point where it just becomes so much that it's not worth it. If you look at the founder of IKEA or other Swedish companies, they typically live in Sweden, and as the company starts to get really, really successful, they move away from Sweden to have the better tax benefit. Another thing is, like, if you own an apartment, let's say you buy an apartment in Sweden, and then you move to another apartment, and you bought both those apartments not with full cash, but you took out a loan, you're not allowed to rent out your apartment more than a year, which I think is very interesting, because I feel like I think a lot of companies maybe take out loans from banks to build like apartment complexes, and they're able to pay the bank back. But it seems like if you're a smaller person and want to do that, you have enough to put like 15% down on an apartment, and then you can rent it out. You can't have multiple properties. You have to own that property outright. And I do think that makes it a little bit harder to become wealthy. I do think overall people in Sweden probably have a better quality of life than you would have in the United States. But the way the United States tax system does work, if you play the game right, like if you really play the game right, you understand how to save money, you understand how to invest. Even if you start out in a place where you have a lot of poverty, you have a decent chance to become wealthy. You just have to understand how the game works. But the problem is, in certain areas where you grow up in the United States, if you don't have the right education or certain things around you at the time, you're really being set up for failure. So I do think overall, hard to really say, but I do think it's honest to say that Sweden doesn't have, especially with starting your own businesses and things like that, Sweden has much harsher tax rates sometimes than what you have in the United States. I do think we get a lot for the taxes, but I mean, I would be lying if I would say to you that it's easy to become wealthy in Sweden, because that's just not truth. I would say most people in Sweden that are wealthy like I said, they moved their jobs and stuff out of Sweden, but most people are like we don't have as many wealthy people in Sweden as we have upper middle class. I would say most people in Sweden are like middle class and upper middle class, with a little bit of a group that's actually, you know, poor or poverty as well. So, but I would say the majority of people in Sweden probably are middle class, whereas in the United States, we have middle class as well, but the middle class keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It could be possible that it's that way in Sweden, but it's just not something I've noticed living here and walking around so much. Number 5, I'm going to get a lot of hate for as well, but you know what? It's okay. It's going to be customer service. This is just something I always explain, and then, like, I hurt some people's feelings that are Swedish, but, like, customer service does not exist in the same way in Sweden and most of Europe, pretty much most of Europe, if not all of Europe, the way it does in the United States. It's like hard to explain. Some people just think that it's awesome, but it's just not to the same quality. Now, I've had good customer service, like I'm not gonna lie, I've had it. I've had people very nice to me, but I'm just gonna give you a couple examples. Like, I don't ever walk out of restaurants really, and I've walked out of 2 restaurants in Sweden, and I'll explain why. I've worked in restaurants growing up, and I know there's a way you're supposed to treat a customer. And when I don't see that and I see people not stepping up and doing the right thing, it just kind of annoys me because I feel like, you know, it's expensive to eat out in Sweden and I expect to have good service. I don't think that I'm like the king of Sweden or whatever and deserve an insane amount. I'm a pretty, I think, humble person, but I just don't appreciate it. Like, when you go to a restaurant, there's a certain thing you do. You go, you greet the customer, you take a drink order. You come back, you take their food order. After you deliver the food, you come back 5 minutes later and you ask them if they need anything else and if the food's okay. Then at the end of the meal, you ask if they need anything else and then you give them the bill. It doesn't always happen that way in Sweden, the way I see it. The restaurant I walked out of, it was like we sat down, a guy opened a bottle of wine for someone else, served them and everything else, and then after a few minutes went by, he decided to go use the restroom before even taking our drink order. We sat there for 15 minutes, and I was just like, no, we're gonna walk out. That's fine. I'm not doing this. And sometimes also what I've noticed at some restaurants is like people, like after you eat the meal and you're done, it can take forever to like pay the bill to leave. And I just feel like in Sweden and just in general, like it's expensive. Whatever, I love Sweden, but like my time is valuable to me and I value like everybody else's time. So I'm not trying to rush to get out of a restaurant, but I just like want to get out at a decent time. So the customer service at restaurants is just not to the same level. I've had great service, don't get me wrong, but overall it's just not on the same level. Where Swedes will say they feel rushed when they're in a restaurant, and I've noticed that a little bit in the States in the end, that you feel like they're trying to get you out quickly to get the next person in. But here, there hasn't just been the same rush. Customer service is really hit and miss. And I'm just going to give you another example of amazing American customer service. I bought a Nintendo Switch in the US. I got it here. That's probably why I haven't done a lot of videos lately. I've been playing a little bit of Breath of the Wild. I ordered this on my card, but I ordered it, and the card that I had the address on didn't match with where I was shipping the Nintendo Switch. So it triggered some kind of fraud warning with Nintendo. So Nintendo called me 2 days later, and I selected 2-day shipping because I was leaving the country in like 5 days. Nintendo said to me that there was a fraud reason and that the package was going to be shipped later. And it's nobody's fault. Like, it's not my fault, and it's not their fault. They were just doing the right thing. They're trying to protect me. But when I called and told them I was leaving to go to Sweden, you know, and I really would like to get this Switch because if it doesn't come in a certain amount of time, I'm not going to get my item. Nintendo of America decided to just ship me this. One day, they shipped it as fast as possible to me, at no charge to me. It came the very next day, and then I was able to enjoy my Switch. The reason you treat a customer so well is because if you treat them well, I mean, think about it. Nintendo, if they give me the Switch and they treat me well as a customer, I'm going to continue to buy Nintendo products. I'm going to continue to support them. There's times on Amazon where I've ordered an item and it wasn't even Amazon's fault, but I didn't get the item, and they automatically just refunded me or reshipped something to me at no extra cost. Because if you keep the customer happy over time, you're going to keep them for a customer for life. And that's why I think it's really, really important. But it's just, it's different culture in Sweden, because not just Sweden, but in Europe, because you don't experience it, I feel like you don't expect it. And that's just why the customer service isn't as well. People always disagree with me, and that's fine, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents. So I probably lost like 1,000 subscribers at this point, and you know, people are probably mad at me. But if you did like this video or you want to join the discussion, please put that in the comments below. You know, keep this in mind. I'm just trying to like have fun and be fun here and give my opinion. And if you don't agree with my opinion, that's okay. That's like how the world works. It's cool. You don't have to agree with me. You know, that I gotta create content the way I believe I should do it. And you know, if I hurt your feelings in any way, I'm sorry, I guess. And I will see you guys in the next video. Hej då! Ah, man! I guess I deserve that one. I shouldn't have talked bad on Sweden.